All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Value Factory. Pleased to be joined today by one of our OneAccord consultants, Chris Keody. And today we're going to talk about some of the work that he's done with clients, some of the work that he's done inside and outside of OneAccord, some of his experience, professional experience. We might talk about family and other things that are of interest. Chris, welcome to the Value Factory.
Hey, thanks. I'm Chris Keody, and it's really cool to be sitting here with you and just kind of chatting in this way.
All right. Well, let's go a little deeper. You are Chris Keody. Tell us a little bit more about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Little life story.
Oh boy, I don't know if we have enough time for that.
Little life story.
Yeah, a little bit. Thanks. Yeah. Let's see. Long story short, born and raised in the Los Angeles area, moved to Massachusetts, went to high school there, hated the snow, came back to California for college, and just got to soak up the sunshine down in Long Beach, California. And I thought I wanted to pursue a career in the film industry, but turns out I actually liked the business side of film more than the creative side. And so I really dug into how do films get funded? How do they get marketed? How do you take a creative product and sell it to a market and have it generate revenue? That was really fascinating to me. And then I got an opportunity to work in the restaurant industry with a fast growing company out of Japan looking to expand in the US. And so I thought, hey, maybe this is a good opportunity to learn some business outside of film. And so I took that up, and it was very intense. It was a very intense job, helping this restaurant chain expand into the US. They had a very ambitious growth goal. They wanted to open um, 5 restaurants a year for 3 years. I got to open 7, and in 2 years.
No small undertaking opening a restaurant. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about just the facility in and of itself is a project, but then you have to hire the staff, come up with the menu, fill the seats, get, the, that's a short list. But I can say from personal experience, you're one heck of a sushi chef, and you didn't learn
Oh,
that in the film industry.
yeah, thanks. Yeah. That was hours and hours of labor, but also labor of love. It is an industry that I'm proud to have experience in. It's also one that I love still engaging in now. Most of the time when people go through an experience that intense, they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore, right? But now I still love going to sushi restaurants, seeing how other people do things, and just being in awe of the level of artistry when it comes to sushi. And 2 years in a sushi business is like the tiny bit of an iceberg when it comes to some of these chefs who have 40 years of experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've really become masters of their craft, and I don't even come close.
For the layperson, you fooled me. Okay, so there's some vocational history, but personally, we got to come celebrate your baby girl's first birthday
Yeah.
recently. So new papa.
Yep. Yeah. She's 14 months now. We stopped keeping track of the months after
No
she
more
turned
months.
1.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's a year something.
a year something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. She's a year something. I always wanted to be a dad. And we have a girl, and I always wanted a girl. Partly because just some passion there around female independence and being able to contribute a female to this world, I think
they're kind of
it's just
important for
a
the future
reward.
of humanity, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that too, right?
But I understand what you're saying in being afforded the blessing, the honor, the privilege of being a girl dad. I don't talk about this as much in value factory stuff, but I've got 2 girls and 2 boys. Our kids girl boy, and it is different. It is different being a girl dad versus a boy dad, and uniquely special. The kind of the interaction that I have with my sons different than the interaction that I have with my daughters. Yeah. I love being a girl dad. I love being a boy dad too. I love the idea of growing boys into men, young men. But I tell my boys, you can move out as soon as you're ready, and the girls, you can stay as long as you like.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. There's that. Okay, so current focus. What I know, and maybe you can expand a bit on this, is that you really demonstrate. So I know this not so much because you say it, but because you show up this way. You demonstrate a real passion for the entrepreneur, the small business owner that has grown their company to a size when they are just feeling really overwhelmed. They're in that kind of right on the precipice of growth where they really should hire some more folks to come in, but it's scary to do so. There's systems and operations and just stuff that goes along with running a business that doesn't have anything to do with the creative idea, the sushi chef that says, I just want to make beautiful food. And they have a successful restaurant, and then next thing you know, they need to hire a GM and they're opening a second restaurant. And like, how did this happen? So tell us about your current focus and why that's important to you.
Yeah, thanks. Uh, Small business is such a huge part of our country, our economy. I see the future of business in small business, right? With the rise of technology and AI tools, small business owners have more power than ever.
Mm.
50 years ago, to be a small business owner, it would be really hard to take your business grow your business to a level where you become nationally recognized. Now you could be a small business owner and still be nationally recognized. That's the incredible thing, right? And the challenge with being a small business owner is you have to wear all the hats, like just to start, that's just par for the course. That just comes with being a small business owner,
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's an important point. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Like,
There really isn't.
to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And, taking like, we could use the example of a sushi chef, but actually I like pizza shop because number one, I love pizza, right? So, maybe even more than sushi. But number two is, the pizza shop owner, he or she's got this great recipe, right? And like, oh, he loves my pizza. Like, I'd love to share that with other people. There's just a real passion behind that recipe, and it was my nona's recipe or whatever. And I just want to give that to the world, right? And this pizza shop owner, they go get a location. They get tables and chairs, they get equipment, they've got all the stuff to make the pizza. And the thing is, they really like making the pizza. They don't like tending the cash register. They don't like answering the phone calls per se, right? Taking the orders. What they really want to do is just be in the kitchen. And, same thing with your sushi owner or sushi chef, right? So what ends up happening though is when you're running a business at that level, you have to do all these things to start. It just there's no way around it. You're obliged to.
Mhm.
And the truth is, in order for you to grow out of that, in order for you to grow your business, you have to start growing out of that. And that's the hard part because it's uncomfortable. It's also squishy, right? There's no perfect way to go from single sushi chef or pizza shop owner to let me go hire my first employee. Let me go hire my whoever, right? There's a million ways to do that. And because there's a million ways to do that, it can get really confusing. It can also be really scary,
Yeah,
and small business owners right now, especially, there's just too much noise out there,
that's so true. Like,
too many solutions.
who do they listen to? Who does
Exactly.
and I'm gonna personalize this, right? So, I mean, you just feel free to talk to me like I'm your ideal client because on some level I am, right? I'm the operator that today I'm wearing the CEO hat, the CFO hat, the COO hat. Thank God we've got a great fractional marketing chief marketing officer. That's the one area where I've really been able to delegate even my responsibility, or I'm sorry, my authority to Nikolai, because and we've worked together now for a year and a half. He gets, like, he can almost to the point where he can finish my sentences, but he knows what I want and what I think. And so I feel comfortable delegating my authority to him. Finance, operations, even sales, culture in the organization, like all of these things, who do I trust? Who do I listen to? There's so much noise, like you said. And, I need to sleep sometimes. I need to have a life sometimes. So who can I trust with the thing that is like the most important asset? that I have, right? My job is not the most important thing to me. My family are the most important relationships that I have, right? My relationship with God is ought to be the most important thing. But I'll tell you, the business is pretty darn important. And who do I trust? How do I filter through the noise?
It's really hard to, especially nowadays, because we're so connected digitally, right? And so, uh, there's ads, there's social media, there's somebody at the networking event, right? There's just all these people that have solutions. And when you're a pizza shop owner, let's call it Tony or Antonia, just genericize it, right?
Tony with a Y or Tony with an I, either one.
Exactly, perfect, right? Either way, when you're a pizza shop owner and you have a challenge and you don't know who to go to, the decision on who is going to help you or what solution is going to work for you is all based on how painful the experience you're going through is, right? And so most small business owners, if they're tired of manning the cash register, they're tired of answering the phones, like they just want that solved, right?
But entrepreneurs must have a high threshold for pain, man, because
Yeah,
well,
totally.
I will endure a lot before I'm tapping out saying, okay, I need help, Chris.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, I think that's a really good trait because it's funny. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were interviewing this billionaire, and one of his pieces of wisdom was, I don't think I'm smart. I just have a high pain tolerance.
Yeah. I
Right. It's like the perseverance, the resistance to give up, just persistence of showing up every day, even though it hurts, even though you're tired, even though you're sick, you're cranky, whatever. It's fighting through all of that, right? In order to build something that you really believe in, which is your business.
yeah.
And to your point, the challenge is small business owners are getting so far beyond that pain threshold that when they're making the decision, it might not be the right decision. It's coming from a place of pain. So you just want to get that pain, solve it, right? It's like, I just need to solve that pain.
Yeah.
So one thing I tried to put out in the world, an idea that I try to put out in the world is talk to the people who have been where you are. Work with the people who have been where you are because they understand the pain, right? They've gone through what you've gone through. They've had the sleepless nights. They've seen the negative cash balance in the bank, right? They've answered call after call, not being able to make the pizzas on time, right? And so because they know where you've been, they can help guide you to where you need to go.
And I wonder if I'm going to make up a number, but 80% of that guidance is really just encouragement because, the only way out is through. The only way out is through. And Jeff, the founder of OneAccord, he's got one of the most brilliant and wise little kind of one-liners. And he probably didn't make it up himself, but he'll say, your conviction makes you convincing. And again, amongst all the noise, how many memes out there talk about every missed shot that Michael Jordan took? How many times Walt Disney was rejected? How old was Colonel Sanders when he launched KFC, right? There is a high threshold for pain. There's a little bit of crazy in the mind of the entrepreneur that just says, you know what? I can do this thing. I can do this thing that everybody tells me that I can't. And so having somebody who's been there to say, like, just stay in it, just stay in the game. And then I want to ask that person, yeah, but how do I win? And the answer often is like, well, I don't know, but you know how you lose, and that's by giving up. So just stay in it, stay in it. But so the 20% of that, so if that's 80% is encouragement, the 20% is like, yeah, don't do that thing.
Hmm.
Don't do that one thing. Don't hire that role too soon. Don't sign on to this 1-year contract with, some vendor of some sort. Don't buy the biggest HubSpot CRM because it's got all the bells and whistles before you've ever used a CRM.
Are you looking into my past when you're saying all this stuff?
So, so 80% encouragement, 20% like I stepped in that booby trap and you don't want to do that. And the entrepreneur like me, I'm like, yeah, but this time it's different. And Chris is like, no, it isn't.
Hmm.
No, it's not. It's not
No.
different.
Yeah. Yep. It really isn't. And I think the sort of layer of the onion beneath that is not just so the primary layer is like somebody who has been in your shoes before, right? The secondary layer to that is somebody who understands you as a person, right? Because that's the thing that small business owners have trouble doing the most is separating themselves from the business, right? And so the way that you make decisions as a person has to be different than the way the business makes decisions. But when
Interesting.
you're just starting out, it's the same thing, right? Because you are the business. You're the one making the pizzas. You're the one doing everything. So let me go get this sauce recipe and the ingredients for that recipe. Let me go buy these pepperonis because those are the ones I like, right? Those are the ones that taste good with my pizza. But then when you start hiring people, when you start bringing in vendors and whatever, are you making those decisions because those are things you like personally or because the business needs that? That's the hardest thing for anybody to separate.
And so I'm just imagining some of the tools that we might use, some of the process that goes into that decisioning. And this is the part of running business that is, and being an entrepreneur, that is not necessarily natural. It's not inherent, but there are people who have, walked around the corner and down the dark alley ahead of us that know, and we've been able to capture a lot of their learnings and systematize them so that, like you said, 50 years ago, it would be incredibly difficult for the small local business to be nationally recognized. But today, because of technology, that's possible. The other thing that is true today versus 50 years ago is that technology has enabled the way entrepreneurs can learn and adapt to new systems. 50 years ago, we could have read, the Rockefeller's book and, we could have tried to, discern through. We could have taken classes and courses in college or some kind of workshop to understand. But today we've got all of that just right there at our fingertips. I'm just, I'm riffing with you on this idea. Where do you take it with your clients to go from this? Okay, I see where you're at. I've been there before. I see who you are. I feel into, and I know this because I've watched you do it, Chris, on engagements. You really lean into the business. Like you lean in as though you are a part of that company, even though your engagement is limited. You're on paper a consultant, but in practice, you're a player. You're in there. You're making an impact. So I've seen you lean in. What do you bring? How do you do that?
I'll start with an intangible thing first, and then we'll go to a tangible thing. The thing I bring first is heart. I bring my heart to any client I work with, any business owner I work with. That's the most important thing for them, right? Is that somebody's in it with them, and it doesn't matter at what capacity, right? Like you said earlier, uh, about working with Nikolai on the marketing side. Nikolai's heart is in it. You know that by the way that he can almost finish your sentences, right? When bringing somebody on board, if their heart's not in it, they're not gonna stay up late at night to make sure everything's okay. They're not gonna answer the emergency call on the weekend to solve an urgent problem, and that can cost you. It can cost you money. It can cost you time. It can cost you business.
Yeah.
And so for me, I know what that's like. I've been there before where, the late night calls, the weekend calls don't get answered and you're like, shoot, I don't know what to do. I'm lost, I'm stuck, I'm scared. I don't say that out loud, right? But I'm scared. And if I don't solve this problem now, what's going to happen to my business? So that's the first thing I bring.
Well, I just would add to this in our conversations and over the couple years we've been working together. I can think of one thing that I've said to you repeatedly, which is, don't dial it back a little bit, right? Because you'll burn yourself out or you'll overextend. And, let's not, it's good to work maybe a little for free, but you really lean in, and I think that's an admirable trait, and it fits with our core values, right? So we look for people that are truthful, that are compassionate, and that have a heart to serve, and that shows up. That shows up in how much you give. So
Yeah, thanks.
now you're going to a tangible thing.
Yeah, so I've essentially built a career out of making mistakes, right? And also jumping into fires that I had no business being in, no business fighting, right? And so because of that, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot through mistakes. I've learned a lot through failure, maybe more than the average person. Whenever I work with somebody, client, business owner, whoever, um, I'm coming from a perspective of let's not make the mistakes I made.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the way we do that is, at risk of sounding cliche, bringing a systematic approach, almost a scientific approach. Hey, how do you know that that's true? Let's go test that first, right? You have an idea. How do you know that your idea is valid? Let's go test to make sure the idea is valid first before we do anything, right? Before we spend money. So, like, I'll give you a concrete example. I worked with a client last year who said, um, uh, there's this market that I really want to tap into because I think it'll be great. We'll get a lot of business out of it. I pushed back a little bit. I said, how do you know that? How do you know that you'll get a lot of business out of it? Well, I can just tell was the answer, right? I can just tell because those are people we haven't tapped into before. They're doing this XYZ. They're hanging out in this area. And I think I'd love to just go there and market to those people. Well, instead of throwing a bunch of resources at it and finding out that actually it wasn't the market, why don't we test to see? Let's do a small little test to see if that market makes sense for you. And in this case, we just did some Facebook ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, right? Very small lift, like a $20 a week budget for relatively large sized market for that client, right? Like, let's go see, maybe there's 100,000 people in that market. So let's go see what it's like if we reach 1,000 of them, right? And see what results that garners. Then we can decide, do we want to spend more money on the ads to get more people, or is the 1,000 people enough for us to build a business on? Well, they felt good about it and decided to move forward quicker because they wanted more leads, more prospects, more sales, right? And they skipped the steps in the process. And if there's one thing I've learned in my career of building businesses and running businesses is you can't skip the steps. You have to go through the steps, right? Because even if you skip half of a step, it's going to come back and bite you in some way, shape, or form later on. And so that's one of the things that I've tried my best to practice with anybody I work with is let's lay out the steps first and let's make sure we go through the steps one by one. It's going to take time. You have to be patient. You're going to want to jump ahead, but we have to do it this way to avoid future catastrophe. And the end of that story was the client jumped ahead, came back and say, okay, let's go back to step number 3 and start from there. And so you end up having to go back and start over.
Yeah. Yeah. I see myself in that story. There are a lot of, I think the instinct of an entrepreneur is something to pay attention to because that's where new ideas come from. That's where innovation comes from. But to go all in on the idea is a big risk. Now, big risk, potentially big reward, but there are systems, there are steps that can help mitigate some of that risk. And I think of the checklist manifesto. How do we not skip steps? And even if we, let's say, go to market with an idea and it turns out to be really successful, well, what did we do with that? What was the idea? Who was the audience? What was the creative? What was the offer? What was the timing? What were the circumstances? Because, so you do it once and you're brilliant. You hit a home run on your first pitch and you're an all-star already. Well, you got to get up to bat again. And you might have a different pitch coming at you. Might be a different pitcher. Might be a different ball field. Who knows? And if we document those steps and if we're scientific about it, that improves our chances at, to repeat success.
Yes. One thing I'll say too, complementary to that is I'm just one person. I just have one set of experiences, right? What I love about working with OneAccord is there's other people, there's other experiences. Now it's you as a business owner, as a business leader, you are drawing from a chest of exponential experience, right? Because I've had the experience I've had. Somebody who maybe had a longer career than I have, and I'd be coming with even more than I can bring to the table, right? And now imagine if you had two of these people, if you had three of these people, if you had 20 of these people at your disposal, so to speak, right? Or you had 20 people to draw on. How much more brilliant could you be, so to speak, right? Calculating that pitch and making sure that you swing the bat right at the right exact moment.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that because there are a lot of independent consultants in the world that do really good work. One of the ways that we think we can differentiate ourselves against those competitors, if you will, is that you, as an independent consultant, you're backed by a team of dozens of professionals with marketing and sales and operations and technology experience. So that, as you are in serving a client, whether it's as an advisor or if you're doing fractional COO work, if you're actually in the company a couple of days a week, you've got a whole team behind you that are ready and very willing to support you in that engagement. And not to say that other consultants don't have networks and friends and so forth, but there is a difference when we are collectively, we'll say when we are all of one accord, when we are collectively there to serve our clients. I think it's different. So, and we're really glad to have you on the team, man. Really glad.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great.
How about a closing thought or anything that you think might be important that you're picking up from the market, clients that you've worked with, lessons learned, sage advice from a new dad?
Boy, the dad advice thing, I realized there's a lot I learned just in the first year. I'd love to put those into almost like an almanac. I want to call it the almanac for new dads. No release date on it yet, but maybe at some point.
How about this? How about this for an analogy? I actually like this, okay? Because procreation has been happening for a while, right? The next new little one that comes into the world isn't the first new baby that's been born. And yet it's the first time for those parents. And there are actually books and books and books and books and books and YouTubes and podcasts and trainings and courses and peps and mops and all kind, like, just there is a never ending supply of information for new parents. And yet we haven't figured it out yet. We haven't perfected this, how to bring the baby home, get her into the car seat, change the diaper, soothe her at night. What and so being an entrepreneur, being a founder, being a business owner is actually very similar. People have been operating businesses, have been engaged in commerce, have been trading furs and fruits and building houses and making carriages. And like this has been going on for a while. And there are books and books and books and books and YouTubes and YouTubes and YouTube. But where do we get the most support? It's from somebody who's changed a diaper or two, and you call them and you're like, does it ever stop? Right? Does it ever stop? And that person says, yeah, just stay in it. Right. Oh, and by the way, when you take the old one off, put one on the top just to protect, yourself. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Good advice. Yeah. Well, I went on a little tangent there. Chris, appreciate having some time to chat with you and let the world know who you are, what you do, where your heart is. I appreciate having you on the team and looking forward to doing more good work with founders and owners and entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a fun ride, learning a lot and getting to make an impact where it counts. That's the most important.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for
likewise.
tuning into the Value Factory. Until next time, uh, we'll look forward to any thoughts or feedback or comments that you might have on content. Please share it in the comments below wherever you're watching this. All right. Until next time. Thanks.